Hey guys, what's up? It's Deb
and
Weirdo Joe from Bumbling Acres. We are going to participate in the Homestead question challenge. We got challenged by the Woltermans, and we're headed up to Sunman, Indiana for my father-in-law's birthday this weekend. So why not record a video while Joe is trapped in a car with me and can force me to do YouTube along with him.
Together that often, so we are actually together. We're not one of those cute internet couples that exist only
so cute
every now and again. Actually are happily married
for almost a month now. In 2 days I will have been his betrothed for a month. Marital bliss.
Still
already
together.
People nailing this wedding thing,
Still
nailing
together.
this marriage thing. I think we're ready to give advice. I mean, it's only my third marriage,
Get
so
married.
Surely I've nailed it by now, right?
The best advice:
Long story.
Get married on your own property because she has to show up eventually.
And it's cheaper. It's very much cheaper. So we're going to challenge Providence Homestead and Mother Udder Farm to participate in this challenge as well and answer these questions.
Mother Udder's, their responses will be interesting. I'm looking forward to their responses.
Yes. So I'm going to let Joe go first.
Lord
the first question is, what got you into homesteading?
Deborah did.
my fault.
That was the inspiration. As I've always said, Deborah is the heart of our homesteading effort, and it was her drive upon which to start this, and great partnership keeps it going. So
I grew up mostly suburban, and I won't say always dreamed of this because I didn't, but as I got into my 20s, really kind of craved having more space and having room for a garden and some chickens. So my first home that I purchased as a single mom down South Florida had an 1.25 acres, which is hard to come by in Southeast Florida. Got lucky enough to buy a home after the market crashed and kind of built it up and had a garden and had some chickens, raised a round of meat birds. And so when I moved up here to Indiana, rented a house for a while, and when Joe and I started dating, I don't even know how the discussion began other than me telling him, some of the stuff I'd done, and he expressed an interest which he'd never had before. And we just kind of found our property and dove into it. I've got really bad sunlight coming in. Hang on one second. Driving through the country. So the second question is, what is something you want to add to your Homestead 2020? Joe's gonna have to knock himself down to a soundbite because he yaps my ear off about it almost every night while I'm trying to cook or fall asleep. So I know this one's got plans.
wow, just one thing. There's not one thing we're doing. We're adding pigs, goats. Well, I guess we'll talk about the thing I'd really like to that may not happen, but I'd really like to would be adding bees to our property in 2020. It's below the goats and the pigs and the paddock areas, but if we can get that done in 2020, I'd really like that, to have bees, to have captured a couple hives, and have at least one hive set up, and get it through the winter in 2020. So bees is probably the one goal.
Yeah, I think for me, expanding our garden space, we've got a big back to Eden space that we built up, and so growing that, kind of getting better at growing things up here. I'm still adjusting to the different growing season and what grows when compared to what I had going on in Southeast Florida. Goats, I really like some Nigerian dwarf goats, and pigs. But yeah, bees are a big thing for me too, for us to have, and mostly just growing our ability to sell things. I'm in the middle right now of, I just bought our domain, bumblinacres.com, and so I'm trying to figure out how to build that, and I'm going to be blogging, I think, connected just on the page, and I came up with the name of No Filter Farmer, because, well, I don't have much of a filter. If you ask anybody, I'm pretty blunt and opinionated, and I have no problem sharing my opinion with anybody, really. I don't expect you to agree, but I enjoy good discourse on people's opinions about things. And we'll never understand people that don't want to share their opinion. I want to hear yours. You're going to hear mine. let's share it.
Oh, look, what's missing? You are church.
Number 3 is, what is the most difficult lesson you've learned from homesteading?
For me, the most difficult lesson, I guess, is the continual lesson, is the processing of failure. Homesteading is constantly trying new things you've never done before. You're always working in, it feels like, adverse conditions. You're always in the process. Things break at the worst times. So you're really kind of figuring a lot of things out as you go along. And the hardest thing about homesteading for me has been learning to accept and see failure for the reality that it is, that it's not unhealthy. That in order to be successful, you have to be able to go through failure. So failure, to me, learning how to handle it and learning how to not be disheartened by it.
And I think mine would just be not jumping the gun to do something or get something before we have the infrastructure in place. We knew we were going to need a livestock guardian dog. I'm a sucker for fluffy faces, and one of our turkeys had lost its head to a raccoon, I believe, and so heading back from a out-of-town soccer game, I happened to see on Facebook Marketplace a Pyrenees puppy for only $100, and we stopped and bought it on the way. Except our property's not fully fenced yet. That's a project that's occurring in the spring. So we brought home a puppy that really needs to be able to roam. She does well outside on a very long line, and we're suckers and bring her indoors when it's super cold or when it's raining. And she's been a great dog. I wouldn't trade Belle for the world, but I probably should have waited to get her and just put some other protection things in place beyond what we had already done. So number 4 says, what is your favorite chore on the homestead?
I honestly probably don't have a favorite chore. I very much enjoy the fact that I work another job. So when I get home, I enjoy the fact that there's always something that needs to be done. And if you stay on top of homesteading, it keeps it from kind of collapsing on you all at once. So I come home and there's always things, setting up our water systems and breaking them down or emptying them, or, getting the compost set up into our composter, making the compost maker, feeding our animals. Like, I enjoy all those little things. So I don't have a particularly favorite chore. That being said, technically, I think by the chore thing, I don't do most of the chores for the homestead. What you would consider a daily chore, that falls on my lovely wife. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say any of the ones we have currently are favorites of mine. They're just kind of things I do by rote. As soon as the sun is up, I go out, let out the chickens, feed them and the ducks, and then go feed the rabbits. They're kind of self-maintaining for the most part because our birds free range. Go gather the eggs in the late afternoon, lock up everything once they've gone in for the night. During the gardening season, I enjoy maintaining the garden. I just enjoy seeing the animals around. I don't know if there's a chore related to them that I love, other than, seeing them gurgling and talking to each other and happy while they're eating. Seeing them enjoy their lives on our property is big to me. What is your favorite thing to grow? Oh, I know what Joe wants me to grow and is super excited to grow. Carrots. Dude thinks he's a rabbit, I think. He really, really wants carrots. I've never successfully grown carrots, at least not in Florida, which we have mostly sand, and I thought they loved that, but apparently not. So hopefully this year with the mulch bed, I'll be able to grow carrots because he likes carrots a lot.
Yeah, I do enjoy a good carrot. That's just a good snack food. You can cut it up in little pieces and you can snack on it throughout the day. It's a good energy source. Helps you stay regular. So, a lot of good things about eating a lot of carrots. And it's not something you can eat too much of. So I'm all about the carrots. I'm looking forward to this year and the carrots.
I enjoy tomatoes when they actually work and the bugs don't get them. I really enjoyed catching zucchini before it got too big and before the bugs beat me to it this year. And I was really happy with the way the red Cory squash came in the fall. Unfortunately, I didn't get a ton of them before we got a overnight hard freeze that took them out. But they grew really fast, really prolifically. I was pretty impressed with them. What do you love most about the homesteading community, Joe?
I'd be honest, I love the fact that the homesteading community is incredibly supportive. It's fairly intimidating to do a lot of things building things you've never done before. I always like to make fun of Maya from Roots and Refuge because he's a carpenter and he builds all this crap that looks wonderful. Jerk.
So jealous.
Where, for me, nothing I build is going to win any awards, ever. But knowing that in the community, I can always ask for good advice and get it. They're always very celebratory for us, so you always have a supportive section. It's an interconnected community, so it's willing to assist each other. My goal this coming year, part of growing out of that, is to make more of a formal connection between the Southern Indiana and Northern Kentucky homesteads in our area, and how do we network together to better take care of each other and to promote ourselves and improve. So that to me is it's a super supportive and collaborative environment.
Police up ahead. And for me, I tend to be a homebody. I'm one of those people that loves to bury her head in books, and I have two really close friends I've been friends with since I was 12 or 13 years old. Somebody drove really poorly on the road. Meth kills people and makes you drive off the road. Don't do it. Anyhow, so I, especially moving from South Florida where there's constantly new people, everybody kind of is making new friends because they're from somewhere else. Moving to a area where people are mostly from here and already have their friend group, it's been extraordinarily hard, especially as someone who tends to be a bit more introverted and more of a homebody, to make new friends, let alone close friendships. And I've heard this from several people in similar situations, especially when you don't do the things that most other people in their mid to late 30s do. I don't have small children anymore. Our son is 16, so I'm not hanging out with other young, mommies. I'm too old to go out clubbing, so I'm not meeting people that way. And then, I don't work a regular 9-to-5 job and do the things. Like, what we do as homesteaders is still pretty counterculture, even in a rural area where we live. Like, there's plenty of people who live in rural areas, but I'm constantly surprised how many of them just mow a lot of grass. They don't raise their own food, let alone to any large extent. So this is still really counterculture. So making friends, let alone finding local people like the Woltermans, Alicia at Providence Homestead, who's only like 14 miles away from me, Kim Ayer, Kim Feller, finding these people through HOA, through online groups, through the Stivers Harvest get-together has been great. And there's actually a group of us ladies that now are getting together once a month, closer. We moved the coffee shop location each month to be closer to one of us, so we can kind of just hang out and build those friendships with other women that live similar lifestyles to us. And we're a varied group. Some of them have young children and homeschool still. Some of them, like me, most of our kids are older. Some are, devout Christians. Some are, not religious. Some have practiced other religions, but we have this common ground. So that's been really nice. What is your favorite meal that you make?
I'll be honest. I was very, very happy. Raising your own meat birds, chickens, has been, everyone says, oh, it's going to be so much better. You're like, I hope so. We committed long before we had any kind of, or I had ever had any non-industrialized chicken. So our birds came out. We only grew 18 birds for us this year, and it was great. And they were larger, so they really made a meal and then some, where we were able to, with one of our own butchered birds, it'll feed us for almost a week and a half. It gives us a lot of meals with stews and everything. So honestly, very much it was our own meat bird chickens that we grew. That really, that was my favorite meal. Because I'm a meat eater, I'm a man.
9 times out of 10, I'm the one that cooks because Joe works a corporate job. I do like the chickens, whether it's ours or anything else's, just because I can stretch that into 2 or 3 meals. Same thing with the turkey for Thanksgiving. I was able to turn it into multiple meals. I like tacos because they're easy. I try and keep my carbs low, so mine's a taco bowl. Everybody else gets a tortilla, but it's you know, you can vary things with your toppings. It's nice and easy. We get some grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef from a local farmer that ends up being pretty, you know, breaks down to like $4 a pound, which I can't beat at the store anywhere for grass-fed meat. So that's probably it. I don't have any. All my things that I really love to eat are things that result in me like gaining 10 pounds overnight, like lasagna, pizza, that kind of thing. I get really inflamed from grains, and just have had to learn that lesson repeatedly the hard way, so I try to avoid it. What is your favorite holiday, Joe? Oh, this is a hard. Oh, sorry, people. It's probably a hard one for Joe and I because holidays were not always the greatest in our childhoods.
Holiday. Honestly, if we look at, let's talk about significant days. It's probably a better way to think about it. There's all the big ones. Pearl Harbor, December 7th is my father's birthday, and D-Day, June 6th is my mother's birthday. So those always, June 6th, my mother's birthday, has a lot of meaning to me, both as a historian. I'm a history major. I love history. So, you know, having that kind of personal connection through my parents, through my mother, to D-Day, actually is probably, it's not really quote-unquote a holiday, but it really should be. But that is probably my favorite kind of holiday would be June 6th, my mother's birthday and D-Day.
This one's hard for me. I can't speak for Joe. We both had kind of rough childhoods just in different ways. For me, I've still struggled to equate holidays with something other than stress. Stress and fighting was my experience of most, like, you know, let's say Thanksgiving and Christmas was most people think of, you know, holidays when families gather. And I've worked really hard to break that cycle with my own child so that that would not be his experience of the holidays. And so that's not his experience of the holidays. But I still struggle to get into the spirit of the holidays, let's say, to really connect to it. So for me, it's more a favorite holiday season, which would be, you know, just that fall to winter, Thanksgiving, winter solstice, Yule time. I like, you know, being cozy, you know, and, you know, fire, blankets, warm socks, family gatherings, yummy food. But, you know, I try and keep it very low-key and minimal. We both have pretty small families, which helps, you know, kind of keep things. And it's been nice, especially as a grown-up reaching a point with our own home and stuff, to be able to then take back control. And, you know, you don't have to go see certain people if you don't want to. You don't have to do certain things just because it was expected and you had to participate when you were younger. So learning to take back that control of our holidays makes a world of difference, and that's something we're still working on. But just a word for all of those with toxic families, toxic relatives: you don't have to go. If you're a grown-up, you get to cut that toxicity out of your life, and I highly recommend it. It will help. Is your homestead where you intend on staying permanently? No.
We are really planning on utilizing every square inch of our 4 1/8 of an acre. And make it into a viable homestead mini farm. But our intention is to get to a much larger piece where we are able to grow more, learn more, do more, really take our... I think I was supposed to turn that.
Uh-oh, I think so.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, we will...
You can turn in 1.7 miles.
Yeah. We look forward to getting onto a larger piece of property that has more options for us. Right now, we're very, very limited on what kind of rudiment animals we can have. Simply, on 4 1/8 of an acre, we could probably support 1 dairy cow, but not more. We wouldn't be able to raise our own beef just because you don't have the land. We could rotate through that would be healthy, limits the amount of pigs we could grow. That makes a huge difference. So, those are things that we will be, our future property will allow us to expand on our operations. So, no, this is a great start for us, but it is just a start.
I think I mostly would just double what he said. I don't even know that we want to stay in southern Indiana. I don't have any ties to this area anymore. My brother and sister-in-law that I moved up here to be near, they moved out to Denver about a year and a half ago. My mom is in this area, but I'm not for sure they're going to stay in that area, and that's not something that ties me here. And like Joe said, we need more land to be able to really fulfill what we want to do with the property. I think Joe talks about being off grid sometime. I'm no Doug and Stacy. I like my hot water. I like my electricity, but I want the ability, we have a manufactured home. Some of them are built with fireplaces. Ours is not, and it's next to impossible to add one aftermarket without losing your homeowner's insurance. I would like the ability to have wood heat and just more sustainable infrastructure. And I would like to be, and I know Joe also, we're thinking about Tennessee, Georgia, the Carolinas, Shenandoah Valley area was very beautiful, but I don't ever want to go through those roads in West Virginia very often. They were kind of terrifying for me as a Floridian. And we want something probably with a little bit more milder winter, not worse winter, or at least about the same as ours here in the Ohio River Valley. So we are on we missed our turn, and now we're on some really crappy back road. So we might see the Clampets along here. Check out that house, y'all. This just breaks my heart up here, and I know you guys all see this probably in your areas too, depending on where you're at. But the level of rural properties that are just sitting here and rotting, and I know, I think Doug and Stacy talked about this at HOA, and I know that Joel Salatin has discussed this as well. There's just so many rural properties that are rotting. The houses are falling down. It breaks my heart to see these old houses that have just been left to sit, land to go fallow, and there's no for sale signs on them. Who owns this property? Who's paying the taxes? Probably nobody's paying the taxes. But I don't understand why they're not listed for sale, and they're just left to continue to crumble. And some of these homes are clearly old historical homes, and they're not savable once they're past a certain point. They're just collapsing in on themselves. And it just breaks my heart to see this so much when there's so many people like us that would gladly take over that land, regenerate it, fix up the house, all for the chance to pay a decent price and do so. So the last question was, what other channels do you enjoy watching and learning from? Joe?
There's I have a horrific memory, so I'm going to have to
fill in for him.
Apologize viciously. A lot of it is, I look for, there's Roots and Refuge, there's Single Dad Homestead, there's the
J. Noel one.
There's so many really, really good ones, and honestly, one of the things I like about
I'm sorry
the
about the
Homestead
bouncing,
community
y'all.
is that we learn from each other. I'll literally look at a project, and I needed to build my meat tractors, my chicken tractors. I went, looked, and there was probably 5 or 6 different homesteading channels that I went to and looked at what they were doing, looked at their design, studied their design, and then implemented on my own. And their input gave me the confidence to do that. And that's one thing I love about the homestead community, is that you can find someone that's in the similar location, similar place, similar designs, similar everything. So it gives you the inspiration to take steps. Mother Udder has really been great, partly being in a lesson, and anytime I feel like I may find myself feeling like I haven't done getting intimidated by kind of my challenges, you see people that have overcome 1,000 times more than you, and it is an inspiration to keep going. So, we all exist to help each other. But Mother Udder, there's always Roots and Refuge. Woltermans.
Justin Rhodes earlier
there's
on.
There's too many. There's too many. They're all good.
Yeah.
And that really is the point. I have yet to see. Well, there's one, but this isn't supposed to be a negative one. Most of the time, I have a great deal of support within the Homestead community, and you should look within the community all over the place. Yeah.
I think what we enjoy most is channels like ours. You kind of like what you see is what you get. I've tried to encourage other, fledgling channels. Like, I don't want to just see your projects that turned out perfectly. I heard quite a few people, and while Joe and I both have talked about, we were a little bit disappointed at HOA of how much time was taken up with people asking questions about how to grow their YouTube presence, when that's not really what that conference was supposed to be about. I also want to encourage people, like, I don't just want to see your perfect project. I don't think anybody just wants to see videos of things that turned out perfect and people with like designer looking homesteads, because then whoever's watching gets the feeling that they can't do that if they don't have the budget, if they don't have the land, if their house doesn't look like that. It's kind of like if you only ever saw Martha Stewart as the example of housekeeping, you just wouldn't even barely bother to do your laundry, let alone host a get together, because why bother? You can't be Martha. So I want to see like Joe's chicken tractor that was way too heavy and that he learned a lesson, and I therefore learn by watching his video not to make a 4x4x8 out of 2x2 plywood or 2x4s, because it's too dang heavy to move and it's going to take two of you to shove. So, don't just think you have to wait till you have this perfect homestead and you know everything before people are going to want to learn from you. But definitely don't start a YouTube channel just because you want to become a YouTube star, because, chances are slim, especially in the homesteading market. But people want to, like, see how other people are doing it, making mistakes, having successes, and learning. Channels that I like, I don't really watch a whole lot of, like, just watching channels. I usually look for specific topics I'm trying to learn on. But, some local friends, Alicia with Providence Homestead, Megan Wolterman from Wolterman Homestead, multiple ones. We met Craig and Jesse at HOA of Mother Udder and became good friends, and they're just, like he said, they're such an inspiration. They lost their home and a lot of their homestead to the campfires in California over a year ago, and they're just now finally back on their property and starting to rebuild. But they have kept such a spirit of faith and perseverance and a desire to rebuild and rebuild even better, and I firmly believe that they are going to do that. And I wish we lived closer so we could help out and hang out more. I like seeing what Holler Homestead is doing, building their property up. And to me, that Jay Knoll one has some really great videos, as well as so does Independence Homestead. But just poke around, look up a specific topic you want to learn on, and you will find about 500 different videos for it usually, and watch several and see which one resonates with you the best. We are, I think, done talking. I've done way more talking than I want to do. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to answer your own questions on your channel and challenge some other homestead channels. Once again, I challenge Providence Homestead and Mother Udder Farm. Take care, guys.